Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the study, and today we're going to study general principles of distribution. So, now distribution is one of the most important issues in the study of economic policy and governance. I think, despite of the extensive research and decades of discussion and experimenting competing distribution policies, this topic is only becoming more relevant in today's world. We don't run short of economic research on this topic, and we're not trying to add to this fruitful area with any additional empirical evidence or theoretical innovation. We're simply trying to answer some very basic questions about distribution from the perspective of traditional Chinese philosophy. And these questions are: what does it really mean by distributive equality? Also, is there any problem at all with unequal distribution? And what should be the driving force of distribution? Ultimately, we want to answer the question, what does equality mean? So I hope that this lecture could provide you with the slightest insight into the nature of distribution and equality, and help us to make a better decision when pondering over the national economic governance. And in fact, as you will see, distribution is a topic that we cannot run away from in almost every aspect of human life. Okay, so let's jump right in about distribution. Now, in this video, I'm going to show you some simple fact and data. Now, I think it's fair to say that when we think about a country's economic performance or the level of wealth, we think about two things. Okay, so one is the overall productivity and production level of the country. The overall. Okay, the productivity and total production level is related to the factors of production such as labor quality, the appropriate division of labor, as we mentioned before, technological advancement, natural resources, government spending, investment intensity, capital accumulation, and consumption level, which feeds back into the production through demand. Of course, the list is not exhaustive, and we can also indicate the production level or the GDP of a country by the different sizes of the pie. So big companies big economic engines such as the US, China, Japan, and in many European countries can be represented by the slightly larger pies, while some other countries with lower aggregate production level can be presented by the slightly smaller pies. Now, because the pie itself represents all the economic output produced, so I guess the other natural question to ask is related to how we share the pie among all economic agents, namely the people, right? So this is distribution. And as I said earlier, distribution doesn't have to be a grand topic. It can be discussed at a country level, company level, family level, and also the world level. Now, I don't think one needs to be an economist to know that the world is not quite equal, okay, in terms of wealth distribution. If we take a look at the cross-sectional snapshot of the country-level national income distribution, we can see that by 2018, the bottom 50% of population of each country by national income share a vastly different proportion of national total between different countries. For example, in the US, the bottom 50% of Americans only receive 6 to 14% of total national income. with available data, this figure is much higher in a number of European countries, reaching 32%. And it seems that the majority of the world is somewhere between 15% and 25%. Okay? Now, the availability of data on the richest minority is slightly better than the bottom 50%. Now, as you can see very clearly, in many parts of the world, the top 1% of population in terms of national income share more than 12% of income of corresponding countries. But, of course, the current status of income distribution has not always been like this. Now, let's have a look at the time series description of the two typical countries, the US and China. Now, we can look at, of course, as many countries as we like, surely, but due to time constraint, let's just pick two countries to represent the developed economy and the developing economies. So the dotted line represents the share of total national income by the top 1% of the population. Okay, top 1%. Whereas the solid line represents the share of national income by the bottom 50%. So from the 0 to the 50th percentile. Okay. Now it is quite clear in the case of the US, from 1966 onwards, the two groups of population has been on a very different path. In 1966, the top 1% earned 40% lower than the total of the bottom 50%. And after half a century, the situation is pretty much reversed. Now, for certain developed countries in Europe, the solid line is above the dotted line, but the shape and slope of these two lines are very similar. So I guess, this will leave us with, somehow natural speculation that they're on a crossing path in the near future as well. Now, in China, as the representative developing country, the top 1% earned about 20% of the bottom 50% in 1978, just before the well-known economic reform, also known as the opening of China, right, in 1978. And then the two groups become intertwined 5 years into the new millennium, okay, around 2006. Now, the data we just showed you doesn't say much about equality, though, because equality does not mean everyone should have exactly the same share of wealth or pre-tax income. Okay, it doesn't say that. But before we understand what true equality means, which is the aim of this course, we must say this beforehand. True equality is the foundation of social harmony and happiness. You see, we always come back to this, right? Because, after all, social harmony, stability, and happiness is the ultimate aim of economic management. Now, the reason I emphasize on the word ultimate is that this happiness and harmony must be achieved on individual basis rather than at a national average level. So this is the basis of the teaching of traditional Chinese culture.